What's up everybody, it's me Johnny G and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are back in the kitchen. Why? We're gonna go ahead and celebrate hitting 300 subscribers on the channel. And I asked you guys to vote on a little bit of a poll that I put up on X as well as Blue Sky. And I wanted to know what you guys wanted to see. I gave a couple of options that I wanted, and I also said that, you know, if you wanted to vote for something else, you could in the comments, and if it got enough likes, it would overpower. However, the one singular item that won out in the poll was that you guys wanted to see another Arknights themed cooking video. So, I had one in mind, something else that I wanted to do for a while based on another voice line in the game. That voice line is none other than LAPPLAND'S voice line when you win a fight and she says, "Slice them up like a Mille-feuille."
Slice them up like a Mille-feuille. How do you like it?
Now, that being said, I wanted to know what that was. And from a little bit of research, I found a couple of recipes and things and basically learned that it is a pastry of sorts that uses something like a puff pastry as well as a pastry cream in between a couple of layers and then gets topped off with something simple like some fruit or some powdered sugar or both. It depends. And it seems like you can make it in various ways. Now, I'm not going to follow a very specific Mille-feuille recipe. However, I will put the recipes that I'm using as well as a couple basic recipes for it in the description. In the description, you guys can go and find it if you want. What I'm going to do is I am going to make homemade puff pastry, which I've never done before. We're going to do that. And also, while we're making that, we're going to go ahead and make a homemade Italian pastry cream. Now again, I will put these recipes in the description and we're going to start with the pastry cream first and foremost. Then it has to go in the fridge to cool for a while. And then we have to do the puff pastry. So this is going to take us a little while for this process. And I'm going to let you guys watch every step of the way. Now my kitchen isn't anything really to write home about, but we're here, it's clean, it's ready to use, and I've pretty much got the things I need for today gathered. So we'll go ahead and we'll get this pastry cream done, and then we'll come back tomorrow and we will do the puff pastry. I also have a little bonus for on top. Now again, I'm not following a specific recipe or anything, even though a lot of them that I found were very, very similar. And the neat thing about the Mille-feuille is it kind of started off, I believe, as a French recipe that got really, really popular in Italy and kind of became more of something that you find there. So it's, I guess, fitting considering the opposite of Italy in the Arknights world on Terra is Siracusa, where Lapland is from. So we're gonna go ahead and with her on my shirt, we're gonna get started on making this homemade pastry cream so we can get it done in the fridge and ready to go for tomorrow. Then, again, we will make the puff pastry next. We'll get that all done, taken care of, and follow its process, which is, again, something, both of these are things that I've never done before. These are all new techniques and things to me. Anytime I've worked with puff pastry before, I've bought it in the pre-rolled stuff in the freezer section or refrigerated section at the grocery store. And I've only worked with it a couple of times before at that point. So this is completely new, and then making this cream is all new. And one of the neat things about making the cream is we're gonna be using actual vanilla beans, which I've never worked with before. So lots of new stuff here for me. 300 subscribers, 2 new techniques to work with on making things to go ahead and make a nice, light sounding dessert. But the kicker, like I said, some people like to top it with things like fruit, powdered sugar, various things to just give it a little bit of extra flavor. What we're going to do, for those of you that see, Lapland's outfit is mostly black. And I wanted to do something, add some fruit, and we'll add a little bit of fruit and some powdered sugar and things on top. But I decided, why don't we go with some blackberries for the topping? So we're going to have some fresh blackberries, as well as we're going to cook some down into a little bit of like a syrup that will go on top as well. And then we'll cover the dust with powdered sugar for the white to kind of top things off. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started and bring you guys in here. All right, guys, so we're over here now, and I've kind of got you reset. I've got a little bit of a extension arm here hanging over. And before we go ahead and get started on the actual process, we're gonna start by kind of measuring things out and getting some things ready. And first and foremost, we just need 2 cups of whole milk, which is something that I use a lot of here. So we're gonna go ahead and measure that out. I have a glass measuring cup here. It's got everything that I need on it. And this just came out of the fridge. Perfect, right on the line. I'm usually pretty good at that. So we'll set that aside, and then we'll go ahead and put this away. I don't ever like to let my milk sit out for too long, just in case. Now, next up, we're gonna go ahead and we need butter here. And it's gonna be cut into 1/2-inch cubes. You use 2 tablespoons, which I've already got 2 tablespoons pre-cut here. We're gonna go ahead and just open it up and take this paper, this wrapper off, and we'll cut it into cubes, which more or less looks like we're gonna get 8, roughly. I've got a larger knife here, so let's cut it straight down the middle. It started to soften a little bit, which is nice. We'll cut it again, and then, whoop, try to keep it stacked. Now, my knife skills are also nothing to write home about either. So, there we go. We've got our butter sliced up. And what we're gonna do for now, just to make room on the cutting board, is we'll move them all back onto the wrapper and set it aside. And let's put this knife aside as well, just in case we need it for later. All right, now we need a 1/4 teaspoon of this kosher salt that we have here. So I have this. We'll go ahead and get a 1/4 teaspoon, and that seems to be the only 1/4 teaspoon we need. So we will just keep everything in the receptacle. Let's go ahead and pop this open and try to get it measured nicely. Nicely and evenly. Whoop. That's pretty even. Take a little bit off the top, just so it's not overkill. And we'll set that aside as well. Whoops, I spilled a little bit. Let me dust off my thing here. Cutting board. And next we need 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. Now, I have my tablespoon here, but I need a little bowl that we can put that in. So let me grab one. All right, I got a bowl here. We'll use that and measure out this cornstarch. Now, there is a little bit less of the kosher salt in my 1/4 teaspoon there, which is fine under the circumstances. It does call for unsalted butter, but I don't have any. I'm using salted, so having a tiny bit less of the salt won't necessarily be a bad thing. Here it is, 1 tablespoon. I might have to get my other box here. Looks like we are low. All right, so let me get rid of this and we'll get my other box. There we go. Already making a mess of my Pookie shirt. And let's get this opened carefully. It is a papery bag, but I still don't want to make a massive, massive mess. So we'll go in here, just add a little bit, scrape off. There's 2. And how many did we say? 3? Yes, 3 tablespoons. Boom. All right, let's set the cornstarch aside as well. And without spilling it, because of my shaky hand, we will get my tablespoon rinsed real quick, just in case we need it later for anything. All right, let's go ahead and close this up and set it aside. Next up, All right, so we got our butter, we have our kosher salt, we have our cornstarch. We need a half a cup of granulated sugar. Now, the one thing about this is the sugar, we're just gonna use it plain. However, it also has a note here that you can toast it up if you'd like. It's just kind of a added thing for the flavor if you want to, but I want to try it naturally, so we'll go ahead and get that measured out. Now, let me open up my chicken here and find my half cup. Should be this one. Yeah, there's a half cup. Okay, so we'll put our chicken back together, set them aside, and let's go ahead and get a half cup of our granulated sugar. Make sure it's a little more even. Beautiful. And now we can get this out of here too. All right. We've got our milk, we've got our sugar, cornstarch, salt, butter. Now the last two things we need to do is we need to work with the vanilla bean, and then we need egg yolks. Now, the egg yolks are supposed to be straight from the fridge, so we're gonna do that last. Let's go ahead and work with our vanilla bean here. And what we have to do for this, oh, that smell, so good. We're going to split and scrape it here. So I have a spoon and a knife here. Now, essentially, we've got two decent sized beans here. We'll put one away, keep it just in case we need it again. And you're gonna have to split it down, and we'll use the spoon to kind of scrape out the seeds and things, and then we're gonna keep them aside. Now, this is going to be cooked together in our cream mixture as we go, as we boil, and then we take out the pod. We can leave the seeds because the seeds are actually edible in the mixture, and you'll get to see that as we go. So, let's see about splitting this bean. I'm gonna take my ring off to make it a little easier. Let's take this knife, and my knives are not the most brilliant thing to write home with either, but let's split this and open it up. Woo! Got some pasty looking bean inside on me. I know there's probably a lot of innuendo you could get out of that, but that's okay. Let's continue to split it. I do need some new knives, some sharper stuff to work with in the kitchen, but as you guys can see here, maybe, it's probably a little too, it's focusing a little bit, but you can see the inside of the bean pod and how there's the seeds and stuff in there. So we're gonna go ahead and use the spoon to scrape that out. Like I said, we're gonna keep those because we're gonna use them in the mixture and then they'll stay in there. Let's try and scrape this. Using the spoon if I can. Again, all new to me. This is brand new technique. And there, actually, there's a better look after scraping that, if it will focus. Might not be doing the best, so it is what it is, but all right, let's go ahead and scrape the other half. And I think this also, it doesn't just get the inside, the seed stuff out of it. I think it also kind of opens it up a little bit and opens the flesh more, just so that when we're working with that flesh and when it gets into the mixture that we're using here, that it's going to more or less be able to get those flavors out, those oils and things a bit more. All right, so we will move this to the side. The last thing we need is the egg yolks. So let's go ahead and get that. Okay, now we have 4 large eggs. We have to use the yolks for 4 large eggs. So I have 2 bowls, so we can go ahead and try and separate the yolk and the white, or we'll use the white for the bigger bowl and the yolk in the smaller bowl. And we just need to crack it and try to split it, separate, and keep the yolk and put it in there. Now, the other thing is I went ahead and washed the outside of the eggs because I'm not 100% sure if I'm right on this, but I believe I remember reading somewhere that they say that salmonella and stuff like that comes from the outer shell. So I tend to err on the side of caution and go ahead with washing the outside before I use them, especially for something like this where I'm separating, working with the shell. So let's go ahead and start by cracking here. And the whites I'll go ahead and set aside for future use. It's already separating pretty nicely. There was a large chunk of white that came out of there. What I like to do is the whole back and forth method because of the fact that I don't have one of those like fancy separators or anything. So there's one. We'll set aside the shell. I'll clean off the counter afterwards. I'm gonna crack that a little too much. I should have went with the side of the counter like I did with the first one, but carefully split it. Let's put the yolk in that half. There, pour some more white out. Try to get as much of the white as possible. Okay. And okay, there's two. Two more. That's a much better crack. That time, even with my shaky hand, I tend to do okay. For the most part. Keyword, okay. Not the best. I'm no professional with this, but I love to cook and bake. So, that one came off a little more cleanly. That's 3, and last but not least, 4. Woo! Whoop, gotta be careful there. Our yolk is starting to break. We don't have much of the white left. Perfect. All right, get it out of there. All right, let's clean up our counter. All right, counter's cleaned and washed off, and we got a little bit of white in there, but it's mostly yolk, so we're pretty good, I think. Let's go ahead and we'll set aside the egg whites in the fridge, cover them, and put them in there so that we could use them for something, maybe here a little egg white omelet or something in the next couple of days. So now we're over here at the stovetop, and what we need to do is we need to combine our milk as well as our scraped vanilla bean and seeds into here, and then we're going to bring it to a bare simmer over medium heat. Then I've got the lid. We're going to move it aside afterwards. So let's start by just pouring our milk directly into here. And we'll set aside the measuring cup since we don't need that anymore. And now we'll go ahead and put our seed off of the spoon. And there's a little bit on the edge of the knife, I believe. Try to get as much of this off here as possible. And a little bit, and some of it just came off my hands. So, again, I am no expert at this, so please do not follow my technique or anything. But we'll put the vanilla bean pod and the seed in there. Let's go clean my fingers off here. And let's just go ahead and give this a little bit of a whisk. Put everything together inside here, just to combine and maybe break up those seed clusters a little bit. And as you can see the little speckles starting to appear all over the place as opposed to just in groups, but they'll break up a little bit more as we get it going. So for now, we're gonna go ahead and turn this up to about a medium heat. We'll get this going and get it up to a simmer. In the meantime, I did put the egg yolks back in the fridge just to keep them cool since they're supposed to come out straight from the fridge. So we'll take it from there. So I've been stirring this occasionally every couple of minutes, and as you guys can see, the clusters of the seed have started to break up a little bit, and we're getting really, really close to the simmer. We've got a lot of steam coming up, so hopefully that doesn't get all over the camera lens, but I'll turn on the fan here on low to try and suction it out a little bit, disperse it. But once this bubbles a little bit more, we get it bubbly, I'll cover it and we'll set it off to the side. Just give it another moment or two. All right, now as you can see, it's bubbling a lot more now, and we don't want to lose the contents of this. We've got a nice little simmer here going, a light, very bare simmer. It's starting to bubble, and it's bubbling pretty good, as you can see. We don't want to over simmer it. We don't want to get it really into a rolling boil. So we're gonna go ahead and turn off the heat, cover it, and set it aside. Now again, all new, so I'm hoping that I'm doing this right. Now this has to steep for about 30 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and set a timer, and we'll let that go. Next up, we need to prepare an ice bath. And simple enough, I just have a bowl full of ice here. We're gonna go ahead and add some cold water to it over at the sink here, and just kind of set it up. This is gonna be for something coming up soon here, towards the end of the process. But this should be okay, and if we need to, we'll add a little more ice to it toward the end of this whole process. But I put a lot in this. It's a pretty decent sized metal bowl, and we should be good to go. It's kind of a mixture of water and ice now. I'm gonna go ahead and set that aside while we start on the next step of the process here. For the next part, we need to put down a dampened towel, and we need a heat-proof mixing bowl. So, I have a larger mixing bowl here, and I dampen this towel just over at the sink. And we're gonna combine a couple ingredients here and get ready, because then this mixture we're gonna get everything combined. It's gonna go back into the pot for a little bit over some medium heat, and then from there, we'll finish off getting everything going, put the cream, it's gonna pass through a metal sieve into another bowl that then it's going to be covered and put in the fridge for the time being. So we have at this point about 25 minutes left on letting the milk and vanilla bean mixture steep. So let's go ahead and stir together sugar, cornstarch, and salt, and then we'll whisk in the egg yolks until the mixture is pale, yellow, smooth, and fluffy. So first up, we got our sugar. Remember, we pre-measured everything already, so we'll set that stuff aside. This makes it a little bit easier for us. Cornstarch, we had the 3 tablespoons, so half cup of sugar, and our 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. Give the bowl a little pat, make sure we get everything out. Here is our whoop, and I spilled our salt, so I gotta get some more. We'll go ahead and do that. I'm not using it directly off the counter. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but we'll get our 1/4 teaspoon of salt done, and we'll get a plain whisk just to start combining the dry ingredients together. Get everything mixed up here. A little bit of a dust floating up in the air, so if you guys do this kind of a thing, make sure to be careful. And that's our sugar, cornstarch, and salt. Those are mixed together. Now we need to get the egg yolks. So let me grab them from the fridge. They're nice and cold. So I'll need a rubber spatula here. Make sure that we scrape them out of the bowl. Whisk all of this together afterwards. Okay, and now it says just whisk in until the mixture is pale yellow, smooth, and fluffy for about a minute. So we'll keep stirring here. All right, now I think we have our mixture the way we want it. You guys can see it is a nice pale yellow color. It's thickened, it's a little fluffier. It is, I guess, the start of our base here. So we just need to wait a little bit now. Once the milk is finished here, once it's done, which we have about 19 minutes left here because I had to change my battery pack of my camera, we're gonna slowly stir that heated milk mixture in. Now the key is slowly because you don't want, even though it's gonna be a little bit cooler, we don't want the heat and everything to go ahead and like cook the egg. We're gonna take our time, little trickle, little stream, and mix it together slowly, all together in here. And then it goes from this bowl back into the pot, and we've got a couple more steps to do to get this done and ready to go. All right, so our timer just went off on our milk and vanilla bean mixture. So what we need to do, first and foremost, we'll take the lid off, and we're gonna go ahead and turn our heat back on because we're gonna need to put this back on medium heat. So we'll get that started and get everything ready. Now we'll set this aside here, and we need to get our vanilla bean pod out. So let me use my little spider tool here and find the bean pod. There it is. Easy as that. So I will set this aside now. And they say that you can keep that and use it, reuse it for something, so maybe we might do that. But first and foremost, we've got our mixture here, and we're gonna start just like it said, very slowly, pouring it in and combining everything together here. A very low trickle, just because, again, it is still warm and we don't want to cook our egg. So we've got to keep it going here. Get this all mixed, and it's going to thin out, of course. But let's get it all combined together and then get ready to go back into this pot. Now I went ahead and washed our spatula here, so we'll scrape everything down and out of the pot for now. Make sure we get all our little seeds. Like I said, they are edible, and they're so tiny it's not something you're really going to taste, and it'll continue to cook down in the next part of the process. So let's get this all scraped out and ready, and we'll wash that again and get it ready to reuse. But now that we have everything fully incorporated, that's all mixed together, we're going to go ahead and put it back in that same pot, the same saucier as they call it. Ooh, it's a good vanilla-y flavor to the milk. We're going to pour this all back in here, and then it's going to be covered and go over the medium heat. So let's put it back in. Not waste any of it. And that's that. Now, go ahead and cover it and back onto the stove. All right, so I took the lid back off. Basically, we're going to be stirring and whisking this constantly over medium heat. Now, I had started the heat, obviously, you guys heard me do that, before we actually got to the point of putting it back on here as we were combining things together. We got the heat already started, but we're gonna be cooking this for about 5 minutes, constantly stirring until we can get it to thicken back up. Now, even once it thickens, we're gonna continue to whisk, and we gotta check for bubbles. And then, once it really begins to bubble, we're gonna continue to whisk for about a minute, and that's just basically the reason why for that process. It says on the recipe that in the egg yolks, there's a starch dissolving protein. And if we do this, we're going to more or less neutralize that. Once it's done, after that, we just got to whisk in the butter and make sure it's thoroughly combined. Strain the pastry cream through the sieve, and then put it in the, we have another glass bowl here that's gonna be covered with buttered parchment paper. Already have that pre-buttered and set aside, and it goes into the ice bath. Now guys, we are about 3 minutes in, and it's already starting to thicken very, very well. So we're gonna continue just a little bit more, and Oh yeah, it's starting to really, really thicken. Okay, now it's thickened. So we're gonna stir it, check for bubbles. Oh, we're starting to get bubbles already. Okay, so we're gonna whisk for a minute. Keep it going for about a minute here. And as you see, it's really thick now. This is awesome. Just a little bit longer. All right. And that is our minute. We have gotten that done. We got to take it off the heat now. And the last step we're going to do is, now that it's off the heat, it's thickened, it's done, we're going to whisk in the butter until thoroughly combined. So we have our thing of butter from earlier. We'll just go ahead and put that in and start mixing that together and just let it start to dissolve. I'll do that up off of the stovetop here so I don't have to move the camera off of the heat. And it's starting to combine really, really well. Boy, does that look good. Okay, now our butter's mixed in and combined. Next step, we've got to pass this through the sieve and into the next bowl. All right, so we went and passed our mixture through the sieve, and I already put the buttered parchment paper on top of it just because we had to hurry up and keep that from forming a skin. It's all done. We passed it through, and it's in another bowl, a glass bowl, in our ice bath. So we're gonna let this sit for about a half an hour, and when that's all said and done, then it's going into the fridge to cool. And at this point, it's pretty late, so I'm gonna let it cool. Instead of just 2 hours, it's gonna go in overnight. So we'll see you back here in a day. All right, guys, we are back here and we finished the pastry cream last night. So that's done, that's in the fridge and just waiting for when we need to use it. Next up, we need to do the puff pastry, which is a relatively simple process, and I've got all my ingredients pre-measured here, saved us a little bit of time that way. We basically need 2 cups of all-purpose flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 cup of very cold water, and 1 1/4 cup of butter cubed. Now, essentially, I'm using salted butter. You could use salted or unsalted, but if you use unsalted, it says to use 3/4 teaspoon of the salt. Now, again, it asked for this to be cubed up, so I went ahead and did that. Kind of made myself a little bit of pile of cubed up butter here. And 1 1/4 cup, well, 8 tablespoons is a 1/2 cup, and most sticks, at least in the US, come with, or come as 8 tablespoons, which is a 1/2 cup again. So 2 whole sticks is 1 cup, and a 1/2 of a stick is a 1/4 cup. So we have 2 1/2 of sticks of butter sitting here all cubed up. I don't think I've ever cubed that much butter in my life, but that's interesting. And now, for the most part, this is a simple process. We're gonna use a food processor, which I have set up here, to put everything together. And more or less what we're gonna do, it's got a metal blade in it. We're gonna add the flour and the salt, and then we're gonna add a 1/4 cup of the butter and just kind of pulse until it's absorbed. Then after that, we're gonna add the remaining butter, do the same kind of thing, and then the cold water, and just make it a dough. And then we're gonna flour the surface here. I got a little bit of flour set aside in my measuring cup here, just to flour the surface. We'll use our rolling pin, flour it up, roll this into a nice rectangle, and then we've got to put it in the fridge to chill for about 2 hours as well. In the meantime, after that, we're gonna go ahead and make our fruit topping. So let's start with this food processor here and get our flour and salt in it. Make sure you guys can see this process. Let's put the flour in carefully as to not make a huge mess. Not just a mess, but so it doesn't poof and go everywhere into the air, which I guess would still be a mess, right? So there's our flour, simple enough. And then let's get our 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Just kind of dump that in there. Set that aside. And next up, about a 1/4 cup of the butter. So we're going to use about half a stick. Whoop, drop some of it. And I'll break up the cubes. Just toss it in here in various places. Remember to keep this cold until time of use. I cut it up immediately before starting this video, so that one doesn't want to break. There we go. All right, I'm gonna rinse my hands off here. But essentially, yeah, you wanna keep it very cold until it's time to use. So even if you want to cube it up ahead of time, while you're getting everything else gathered, you can do that, and then just set it aside in the refrigerator until you're ready to go ahead and do these parts. So next up, we're going to pulse this about 10 to 12 1-second pulses until the butter is absorbed, and then we'll add the remaining butter. All right, so let's turn it on and move it aside here so you guys can see the side a little bit better, and let's pulse it. Okay, nice thing about this is it's got a counter on it, so I don't have to count. Now, we can't really see the butter. There's a few little bits in there. It's starting to kind of crumble, and that's kind of what we want, because then we're going to put the rest of this in the same manner and start pulsing it up only a few times and get it to crumble more. But then when we put the water in, it's going to all start clumping together and make the dough. And you kind of want the butter blended in an even way, but also not completely destroyed in a sense, because it's gonna help to puff up the pastry when you go to bake it. So let's go ahead and get the rest of this butter added in. And I'm trying to break it up because, again, it is supposed to be cubed, and like I said, I cubed it up, but it's sticking together. So try to break it up a little bit so it's not clumpy. We don't want clumpiness. And then again, after we break this all up and put it in, I'll go and wash my hands again, just so that they're not greased up. I should have took my ring off again. Took it off yesterday to do the other work, and then didn't take it off today. Goes to show you. Sometimes I let things slip. As I said, I'm not a professional. I'm not perfect at this. This is just stuff I like to do for fun. Let's go ahead and wash those hands up. And then we'll get this pulsed up 2 or 3 times before we start adding the water. Here we go. Let's flip it, close it, and about 3 more times. 1, 2, 3. All right. Now, this is to add the cold water and pulse 4 or 5 times until just the dough comes together to form a ball. We don't want to overdo the process. And that's another thing that's kind of common among baking, is if you overwork doughs and things, it can come out bad, not in the way you want it to. So this also doesn't say anything about just little bits of the water. It just says to put it in and pulse it up. So we're gonna hope that this does what we want it to in this time. So let's go ahead, we put the water in, and let's pulse it. Okay, it's starting to dough up. Let's see here. Add the cold water, pulse 4 or 5 times just until the dough comes together to form a ball. Well, it's not really forming a ball, but it's getting there. So we did 5 more. I'm not going to overdo it because, yeah, it looks like what I can do is I can go in here and hand knead this a little bit.
So, we're gonna do this ourselves now.
Let's get this off of the top here. Because again, we don't want to overdo this, we don't want to overwork it. And we want this to form up into a nice dough. So I'm going to get our food processor out of the way here so it can be cleaned up later. And we're going to get a bowl just to pour this out into. And I've got my clear glass mixing bowl, so I'm going to pour this into there. It looks like this didn't quite gather all the ingredients up the way we wanted to, so I will do the rest by hand just to try and not over mix it. Got that all out as best as we can. Set that aside and let's pull this off. This is kind of formed up in a sense to like it's getting clumpy and it's starting to pull together, and that's what we want. But again, we don't want to overwork it. And a lot of times if you overwork it, it'll come out too dense. It won't be light and fluffy and flaky the way you want it, whether it's, you know, a pastry or like a crust, just any kind of dough for the most part. And I think in a sense, let me take my ring off here. I'll set that aside. I think in a sense, when I did the Lupo gingerbread, if you overwork that dough, it would do the same thing. So I'm just gonna hand incorporate the rest of the ingredients here and start pushing it together to form a little bit of a ball. Now the one thing is, we might have to add a tiny bit more water. You don't want to add too much, but it's one of those things where it's not completely clumping together the way we want it to. I used half a cup just as the recipe called for. Well, it might be doing a little better now if I can form it together like this. No, it's still falling apart. So we're gonna get a little bit more water to try and make this a little stickier, just a tad. We don't want too much, so maybe a tablespoon more here. And let's try to incorporate this. There we go. Just that little bit of water has made a difference. Again, you don't want this too sticky either. You want this to come together. And then the flour, when we go to roll it out here, will help to do its job. And just kind of take away any of that excess moisture. So, there it is in the ball. And that's just it. We're gonna need to get our surface floured now. So I'm gonna set this aside over here. And now we have our surface nice and dried and it's prepared, it's ready to go. Let's get it floured up here. My flour's a little clumpy here. Just pat it and break that down. Now you don't want to over flour. If you do that, I've noticed at times when I'm rolling stuff, whether it's on this counter, which is kind of like a laminate countertop, versus even like a stone countertop or whatever, if you're over flouring it, it can kind of work in a detriment. It won't work the way you expect it to or that you want it to. But it can also mess with your dough or whatever there as well. I like to flour the rolling pin as well. The recipe does call for it. So we're just gonna put this out here and we're gonna knead it. It says to knead approximately 10 times, so I'm not the best at something like that, but we're gonna try. That's 2. Push it down, fold it over, that's 3. Whoop, see, we're starting to stick a little bit, which means our surface isn't quite as floured as we'd want it to be. So I'm gonna pick this up a little and add some more flour. Over there. There we go. 4. 5. I like to knead and turn over. 6. 7. 8. Whoop, we're sticking again. So, what do we do? Let's bring this over. Look at that. There we go. It's picking it up. Add a little more. 9. And 10. Well, hopefully I did that well enough. And last but not least, we're going to go ahead and roll this into a rectangle. I'm going to make sure that we pick up all these bits. Spread this flour around a little more. A little bit more fresh flour. And then we've got our rolling pin ready to go. Let's just roll this into a rectangle. Make sure we're not sticking here because that would be awful. Add some more. Whoop! It's starting to stick to the rolling pin too, so and it says to make this roughly 12 by 18. So we need to spread it out a little bit this way. Roughly what we want lengthwise. We're kind of pulling off to the side there. You guys can't see too well. That's my bad. Okay. I'd say we're pretty close to what we need to. Now, we just need to kind of fold it and get it how we want to. And it's a little bit, it's not a perfect rectangle. I think what I'm gonna do here is we'll take, do I have one here? I guess we'll just use a knife. And just to make this a little more rectangle for the purpose of what we're doing it, I'm going to cut and trim the edges just a tad. Not perfectly because we're not expecting it to be anything fantastic or perfect, but we'll take the excess and roll it up into something else here. Okay. There we go. There is our puff pastry sheet that will become our Mille-feuille. Now, we just have to fold this now, essentially, and then we're gonna wrap it in plastic wrap. So let me fold it up one way and the other. We're ready to go. And then put this in the fridge. Piece of plastic wrap out. Provided we don't get it to all stick together. And then let's flip her over. Whoa, we didn't get it. Oh yeah, we did. We're all right. Just barely. We'll make it. All right, she's wrapped up. We're gonna lightly carry her off to the fridge. All right, guys, next up, what we have, we're back over here at our stovetop, and I've got a pot here ready. We're gonna go ahead and just make a simple blackberry syrup. I went ahead and washed my blackberries and got them ready here. So we're gonna use roughly 8 ounces or so. We're gonna just put the blackberries in here with about a cup of sugar, and then a little more than a half a cup of water, just a tad. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring it to a boil on medium heat, just until we get what we want syrup-wise. So again, I washed those up. There's about 8 ounces or so there. And then let's put our sugar in. Here's half cup. And then another half. I'm using a little bit more just because this is something that I've known how to make syrups and things like this for pies and other recipes that I've done, but it's a simple process for the most part, but you can adjust the measurements little by little in increments and still get the desired result. Try to clean this sugar up so it doesn't burn to anything here. And like in this case, I'm not following it exactly. Most things you'll do like a cup of fruit to a cup of sugar. And then of course, you know, your water. And that was a half a cup. Let's just add a splash more because you don't want it too thin, but we're gonna get that up here again on a medium heat and just bring it to a boil and then keep stirring it. And again, you can adjust those measurements a little bit as you want it, but on average, a cup of berries or whatever fruit you're using, a cup of sugar, and then a half a cup of water is kind of your ratio to go by. That's at least what my mom had taught me, so I go by what she does, usually, in some cases. And again, none of us are professionals. We're home cooks, if anything. So we'll go ahead and let this go to a boil. Let me cover it so that may help with the process. And we'll let it sit here and just keep an eye on it and get ready to stir it. Just for fun, while we're waiting for this to go, I'm going to enjoy a zero sugar Blackberry Dr. Pepper. All right, we're starting to heat up a little bit here, starting to bubble. So I'm just going to go ahead and stir some things around, stir it around a little bit, and then we'll cover it back up and let it continue to do its thing. It's getting there. We're starting. Got the heat. All right, check it again. We got bubbling. We're starting to boil here pretty good. So we'll let that continue and keep stirring it. Every couple of minutes, we'll check on it. We'll keep stirring it just to make sure that it's doing its job. And more or less what we want is we want that to start, once it hits this boil, we're going to take the lid off and let the heat escape, or let it kind of start to evaporate the water. And then as it gets to evaporate and it starts pulling everything together, it'll start getting smaller and the berries will start to cook down and we'll start to get our syrup. And then the last part to that is we're just going to strain it through a sieve like we did with the pastry cream. We'll use this into a bowl, strain it through, pass it through, have it ready to go, and then we should have our syrup ready for later. And this syrup can be used in multiple applications. I mean, we're going to use it kind of as a topping, but you can use it as a topping. You could use it to mix into something like if you want to do a drink or whatever the case may be, whatever. It's kind of got versatile uses in a way. And again, any kind of fruit you could think of is mostly you can do this same ratio and so on and so forth with. But we can use it as a topping. You can use it for like with pie filling or something like that. It's just kind of up to you. Now that we're boiling a little more, we'll go ahead and we'll take this lid off. And we'll just continue. We'll give it a little stir. And as you can see now, the water, just that couple minutes there, since it started boiling, the water has already started to change color too. You're starting to get that essence, that color, the pigmentation coming out of the berries and coloring the water. So now it's just a waiting game to let it cook down. Now at this point it's starting to cook down. We're starting to lose some of the water, but it is still just a little too much. And the berries are rolling. We want to get that evaporated more and get it to start cooking down and congealing. Now, under the circumstances, most recipes will probably tell you about 5 to 7 minutes or 8 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. You kind of got to let this go until it starts to cook down further, because otherwise you're just not going to get the syrupy texture or consistency that you want. I've had a couple of like cookbooks over here that I have that'll tell you 5 minutes, and one I think has 8 in it for different kinds of fruit syrups and things. It also depends on your oven, your stove top, or whatever you're cooking on as well. Sometimes things are different, and a lot of recipes and things don't take that into consideration. So doing this, it's all a matter of time and playing a waiting game and a little bit of patience. Now, another little thing, if you absolutely want to, that you could do with it in order to thicken it up, if it needs to, when it's all cooked down, is you could add a little bit of cornstarch. You don't want to add a ton, but something like that that will act as that thickening agent will be good for this, but most cases you won't have to. And we're not looking for this to be a super thick syrup anyways. We want something that's just going to kind of drizzle over the top and look nice for presentation, and then we're going to dust powdered sugar over the top as well. And some fresh blackberries that I also have washed and set aside. I use most of my bigger ones here for the syrup, and we'll use the smaller ones for the topping. Ooh, and it's smelling wonderful. You can smell it. It's coming in there really good. Oh, very fruity, sweet scent. I like it. It's making my kitchen smell good. Of course, working with the milk and vanilla yesterday made my kitchen smell really good as well. So, all right, so as we can see, we're still trying to cook off some of that water. And it's going to take a while. It's going to take a little while. And then sometimes the fruit doesn't always completely cook down. You'll get some solid bits left, which is why we're going to strain it through the sieve. But if you want to, you can always mash this up as well with like a fruit masher or a ricer or something, like potato masher, whatever the case. You can use that to squish it down and squish some of the bits. And, you know, if you want to quicken this, you can always use less water. But again, we're not looking for a really thick syrup. Like, this is good right now if you want to use it and you want to strain it as is. Again, you know, that 5 to 8 minutes that a lot of recipes will go with, or you know, sometimes a little more. I think typically they go off of making a thinner, lighter syrup and just straining it as is. But I like to cook the berries down to get that more almost syrupy, thicker syrup, but like jam-like consistency in some cases. And we're not going for a jam or a jelly type thing. I want it to be not quite a fruit puree either, but we want it to be a thinner syrup, but that almost like when you get like a bottle of syrup in the store, not a maple syrup, but like the artificial where it's kind of thicker, just a little bit thicker. We want something like that with what we're going for, if we can get it. And we may not, since this is my first time working with blackberries like this. I'm used to doing it with blueberries or strawberries, so I'm not exactly sure how well this is going to turn out, but we're already getting a nice thinner liquid that looks and smells really good. I might go in and mash it up here and then continue to let this water boil and cook off a little bit, and then get ready so that we can strain it and hopefully have that consistency we're looking for. And again, if we need to, we'll thicken it up with a little bit of cornstarch in the end. And now that we have that mashed up, we can stir it around. We can see we don't have any more big hunks of fruit. And it is starting to get a little bit more congealed, a little bit more thicker, I guess. So I think it's still a little too thin. Maybe adding that extra splash of water wasn't a good thing, or maybe these were just really, really juicy blackberries. So we may have to do that. We may have to strain out the solids here, put it back in here with a little bit of cornstarch, mix it together, and just get that syrupy consistency that we want. So let's give it another couple of minutes here, and then we might try that. All right, let's go ahead and do that. I've got my bowl and my sieve prepared. Let's pour it out through the sieve carefully. Set the pot aside for just a moment. Let's make sure our fruit solids are all out. I'm going to set it aside here very carefully and use a rubber spatula just off to the side. And press down on the blackberry. Now be very careful when working with this, because this is a very potent, very colorful, you know, fruit. So you don't want to get this on you and accidentally dye something. You may get some colorful fingers in the end if you're not careful. But we'll just squeeze some of the juice out here. You guys can't see, I know, but I just want to get this done and get it back in the pot to where you can see what we're working with. So we're good now. I'm going to get this sieve set aside, and we're going to put this back in the pot, back over the heat. And it's almost there. Oh, and it tastes really good. So, it is almost to where what we want it. Now, in order to make sure that we have enough here, maybe a little bit extra, I'm gonna do that. We're gonna add about, let's say about a half a tablespoon of cornstarch to this, and then mix it around. We'll let that boil. We'll stir that in, bring it back to a boil, and we'll see if that thickens it up to the consistency that we want it to be. And then we can put it back in our bowl and set it aside to cool. It's looking wonderful. Now, we'll start with that half a tablespoon and see how things go. Let it boil just a little bit more, and if we have to add more, we will. But otherwise, I think we might be good here. All right, and as you can see, that cornstarch is really helping to thicken this up a little bit more. And we've got, it's still thin, but it's feeling a little heavier. We're getting a lighter volume, so we'll give it a little bit more as it continues to bubble up and foam up like that. We might just add that tad bit more. We'll do that. We'll make it a full tablespoon worth of the cornstarch total, and I'm not going to add any more because, again, we don't want it to be too thick, and we'll let it to continue to do its work. And then again, this is actually fun. This is the first time I've ever worked with real blackberries, and I don't know if you guys, I think I did a review on something, and I talked to you about how whatever the item was, it was blackberry flavored. It may have been the Dr. Pepper, or maybe it was something else. I remember doing a review on something that was blackberry flavored, and I said I'd never had something real blackberry before. Well, now we're going to. It's just a little bit longer for this to bubble up. Oh, it's looking fantastic and smelling fantastic. You don't want to go too much longer because you don't want it to burn. It's still a little thin, but it's picking up. Just a couple more minutes and I think we'll be ready to go. All right, and it is definitely starting to thicken up a little more. So we are done with boiling that. We don't want it to get any more. I'm just going to pour it off into this bowl here, and we'll let it sit and cool off, which should thicken it just a tiny bit more. But I think we're about as best of a consistency as we're going to get and what we want for this recipe. So now we just have to go ahead and wait until everything's said and done with the puff pastry. And then we can start baking it, and we can get the cream ready to go and piped in, put it all together, top it off with our syrup and our blackberries, and we will be ready to try this. Okay, so we're done with our syrup. We are done waiting on the dough to sit and cool in the fridge. Everything's ready to go. Now what we need to do is we're gonna make a quick egg wash and then get that ready so that we can brush that on top of the dough, get it baked, and then we'll be able to assemble everything. So I've got one egg here. This is gonna be real simple. We're not gonna need a whole lot. And the whole purpose of this is just so that we can get a nice golden brown kind of color to the crust of the pastry. So we've got the egg in here. We're gonna add about a tablespoon of water, maybe a little bit more, just to it. And then we're gonna go ahead and beat that like you would for a scrambled egg. And as you can see, well, I'm splashing it a little bit, but it's a little bit lighter of a color, a little paler than your typical scrambled egg might be. Not by much, but you could do this with water, you could do it with milk, pretty much any kind of liquid, but it's as simple as that. Nothing more to it. I've got a little brush tip here that we'll use. It came off the end of a whole brush. Got my puff pastry dough here. let's go ahead. I've got a tray already ready to go with parchment paper on it. We'll move the egg wash to the side here. Slide this over. And let's carefully open this up. It's nice and cold. Lay it right in the middle of the parchment paper. Now, hopefully, this will unfold gently. And then we'll get it to lay flat again. There we go. I wouldn't worry too much about this because this might be perfect for our separation. And plus it's gonna puff up as it bakes. I've got the oven preheated to 375. So let's just go ahead and brush this egg wash onto it. Try not to get it, too much all over here. Something on the pastry there. Okay. Brush it over that spot. This is kind of a little rubbery textured brush. I prefer to use a bristle, an actual brush, but I don't have one of those right now. I got rid of the last one I had, so I'm using this. This one originally came with a grill set, and the handle just broke. Okay, and we've got that all over those grooves, and we're ready to go. We're gonna go ahead and bake this for 15 minutes now. Let's put it in the oven. All right, our puff pastry is done baking. Now we had a little bit of change partway through to the process, just because now we do have a nice golden brown look here, but as you can see, it hasn't puffed up too much. A little bit, but I think I may have accidentally put too much egg wash along the edges, which will accidentally seal the sides of it, so it won't puff up and get really crazy high. But we don't really want it that way either. We want this to be nice and even, so we can kind of have nice even layers and prepare it. So now, another thing I should have probably done was cut it ahead of time, just to separate the layers and let them bake and puff up. But that's all right, that's not a problem. We're gonna go ahead and cut it now, and then let this cool for a few minutes, and then we will we'll transfer it to a wire rack to cool. But then, once it's all done, we'll start the assembly process. So let's go ahead and we'll get this, oh nice. It is crispy. I was worried about it. It is crispy and flaky, very, very nice. I was worried about it maybe being, kneaded too much or anything like that, but I think we did a decent job. I probably over kneaded it a little bit, but it should be okay, I think, at this point. Let's go ahead and get a wire rack. Okay, and we'll move this over just to place this, and then simply enough, we'll carefully lift our paper, transfer it over to here, separate the layers just a little bit more, and they do have a very nice crispiness to them. So I can get this tray out of the way now, and I think we'll be good to go. And our puff pastry is cooled. Now, again, during the process, I actually took the paper out from under it and left it on here just to give it a little more air cool underneath. It was cooling nicely on top, but I wanted to make sure that it was cooled down all the way. And you can't really hear it, but it is crispy on the top. But if you look at the layers, it isn't quite as puffy and as fluffy as I would have wanted it to be, but it's nice and crispy. So it's going to achieve a similar thing, but usually puff pastry is going to puff up and rise a little bit more. But I've seen a few recipes that have it like this as well. So it's a little bit thicker than what it came out to be, or what it initially was, but it's almost like cracker-like right now, which might actually make this really interesting. So we'll see what it's like, and maybe in the future we'll try it a little differently and try to see if we can see what I did wrong, whether it may have been the egg wash or whether I overdid it when I was working with it because of the kneading and having to clump it together and all that. So one way or another though, this should be good for what we want it to be. Let's go ahead. We're gonna bring our little thing over here and get ready to make it. Now, we've got to go get the pastry cream out of the refrigerator. So I'm going to move our puff pastry off to the side and go get the pastry cream. And that is done and looking beautiful. Now it says when we're ready to use, just to whisk it up a little bit. It's still formed a little bit of a skin on top. That's okay. We'll whisk it up. Try to get it to smooth out a little bit more here. There we go. And it's almost like a pudding right now. It's almost like a pudding consistency. And if I wouldn't have had to have waited so long, we probably could have used this a little quicker, a little sooner, and it would have come out a little bit better. But that's okay. Boy, does that taste delicious. Yum. Now, of course, we're going to start by putting a layer of the puff pastry on here, and we're going to use our largest piece as our base. So we'll put that up in the middle to get ready to make our Mille-feuille. And hey, you, get out of here. Not your time yet. You can try it later. Next up, we're going to use my technique that I've used before that I showed you guys when I used icing. And basically, we're going to put the pastry cream into the bag. I've already got a bag with an icing tip on it. We don't really need to do anything specific or fancy, but I'm just going to put this into the bag and get ready to fill our layers up. Try not to, well, we might not get any more here. Let's see. Well, we'll use what we've got here and we'll put the rest aside for now. So, what we're gonna do, let's get this bag done and ready to go. Try to squeeze it down a little bit. This might be a little bit hard to work compared to icing, but we're still going to try. I kind of wish I had one of those clippy things for the top of an icing bag that you use, and you clip it on the top to seal it shut before you go ahead and roll it down. But we got it coming out of the tip now. We can go ahead and pipe it on. And I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just going to do layers of cream here. Okay. And we'll keep going till we get to the end. Okay, we're going to add a little bit more going across here. And I've seen this done similar to how I'm doing it now, and also I've seen it done in a way where they've done like little dots just to be a little fancy. But that's that. Now we put the next layer on, give it a little press so it's not too hard, and now those layers are together. Let's open this bag up and refill it because we still got a little bit left, but not a ton. Let's get the rest of the pastry cream in, and then we can do the next layer. And now that we're all refilled, tuck our icing bag down, and let's start doing it again. Oh, little air bubble. Okay. Whoop. Kind of glob it in there a little bit. We'll just add a little more. Going down here, and here, and here, and here. And we almost used all of it. There's only a little bit left in the bag, and that is going to be a little treat for me. Now, last but not least, let's go ahead and put our final layer on top. And we have the pastry itself assembled. So, we're going to top this off now with our raspberries, or blackberries, I should say. And then we'll finish everything up with our powdered sugar. First, let's get a drizzle of this syrup on top. I'm just going to use a spoon here. Now, our syrup did thicken up a little bit, just the way I wanted it to. So, let's go ahead and just put that on there. No particular reason or rhyme to how we're going to put it on, but I'm going to get it all over the top here. Have it drizzle down the sides and just make it look a little bit of a mess. And you know, I originally chose blackberry for the fact that, you know, the berries are like a blackish color, at least on the outside. Thinking that, you know, LAPPLAND'S her outfit is black in her original, at least. But if you look at it, it kind of comes out to a little bit of like a reddish color in the syrup, almost like blood. That's kind of fun. Now with that done, we'll put a few fresh blackberries right here on the top. Let's just put them here for a little presentation. Make it look nice. And last but not least, we're going to go across the top with some powdered sugar to dust it off and give it a finish. And with that, my friends, the Mille-feuille is complete. And now that we're all said and done with that, let's go ahead and cut this bad boy up and give it a taste test. Let's check it out. Alrighty, we cut a slice of this, and now we're ready to give it a taste test. We got everybody here to try. So, who wants the first bite? First bite? Okay. If I were you, I would kind of stab it from the corner. Be careful, it's gonna squish, because see? Yep, it squished a little bit. Just try to get as best as you can. What do you think? Okay.
I love it.
Toby, go ahead. You next. Just try to get as much as you can, because it's flaky. Here, I'll try to reassemble it here, and then you can get in there. What do you think?
That's amazing. I really like it.
Yep, get as best as you can. You scoop it up if you have to. It's gonna be tough.
Here.
Got it? All right. Ooh. We got some good responses here. Now if I can get it without destroying the place. Okay, here we go. Wow. Mmm. The puff pastry, despite not puffing up the way I wanted it to, still came out very good. It's flaky, it's crispy, it's got a good buttery flavor to it. The pastry cream, very nice vanilla flavor to it. A good thick custardy texture. Nice, you know, that it just has a very good balance of flavors with that. And then adding the blackberry and the blackberry syrup, it really didn't take anything away. It didn't overpower anything. It all blended very well together. Powdered sugar was a nice touch. And honestly, I don't remember what it is, but that puff pastry reminds me of something, the way it came out, something that my mom makes for Christmas. Or she made. I don't know if she still does, but it's something that she used to make, at least, with the puff pastry. Anybody want more?
Sure.
Go ahead, dig in while I finish. But that came out very well. Well, overall, I think that was a hit. And with that being said, these guys are going to devour that piece. There's still about 3/4 of it left out there. Honestly, that's a very, very good little simple pastry. It really didn't take much to make. It's just a little time consuming. And I'm happy with how it came out. And again, you could make it with whatever fruit topping or whatever you want it to be. But overall, guys, that's it for this one. First of all, thank you so much for 300 subscribers. I couldn't have done it without you guys. And as to the point of making this video, we've already crossed that and we're going up and up and up. And it's been a fun time. So I'm very excited to put this out for you guys. And just another little Arknights teaser or something Arknights related that we've done here. So give me some more ideas. Go in the comments. If you've made it this far, let me know what other kind of Arknights foods, drinks, anything related to voice lines or moments in the game or anything that you remember and you'd like to see me maybe try and replicate, just like we did the Mille-feuille from LAPPLAND'S voice line. Again, thank you so much for 300 subscribers. I appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time out of your day for hanging out here with me on the channel and watching my videos. You guys are awesome, and you guys, again, have made this happen for me, and you're helping me towards my goals and dreams. And if you want to continue to help, the best ways you can do right now are to like the video, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. It's going to help me to continue to grow and reach my goals further yet. That's it for this one, guys, and we will see you next time.